Hello and welcome back. I'm the Big Shot Critic, and today it's back to Bond vs. Bond, the first outings, and it's Timothy Dalton's turn in The Living Daylights. Roger Moore had done 7 out of the 14 Bond films by the time he was done, doubling the length of the franchise all by himself. It was time for something new. As much as people love Roger Moore's Bond, and we really do, he very nearly overstayed his welcome. To date, he is the oldest actor to ever play Bond, turning 57 during the production of A View to a Kill. His last 2 entries are not that popular among fans, and he was just getting old. Old for playing a deadly spy, anyway. But Roger Moore had done what he was brought in to do. The series was no longer teetering on the edge. The public was asking what the Bond producers would do next, not if they would do anything at all. Taxi! And as fantastic as Timothy Dalton is in the role, and we'll get to that in a bit, his road to Bond was not so very direct, I'll put it that way. It's a messy story, and it seems to change a little bit depending on who you ask, but the consistent parts go something like this. He was approached many years earlier about the role, but turned it down because he felt he was too young. If you've ever seen The Lion in Winter, first of all, I'm sorry, I think it's a terrible movie, but Timothy Dalton shines like a light in that movie at just 22 years old. He has a scene opposite Peter O'Toole, who was in his career prime, and he comes this close to stealing the scene from Peter O'Toole. So anyway, that's why the Bond producers approached him back then. Fast forward to the mid-'80s, after Roger Moore walked away, and the story gets messier still. Timothy Dalton was in the final round of considerations for Bond, but lost the role to Pierce Brosnan. Of course, we'll get to his actual debut as Bond in the next video. That's right, folks. Pierce Brosnan, who did play Bond from 1995, was all set to play Bond back in 1987. Brosnan was the public's favorite choice by far. He was playing Remington Steele on TV, a fairly Bond-like character, and was what you would call the safe choice at the time, just as Roger Moore had been in 1973. But then this whole thing happened. Remington Steele was already cancelled by the time Pierce Brosnan was announced as Bond. The announcement of him playing Bond drew more attention to Remington Steele. So NBC exercised an option and revived the show for another season, for which Pierce Brosnan was obligated to return. Cubby Broccoli, the Bond producer, did not want him playing both, so he reversed the offer to play Bond. And just like that, Pierce Brosnan was no longer Bond.
The trick is to quit while you're still ahead.
That's one trick I've never learned.
So Pierce Brosnan was Bond for a few days, and then he wasn't Bond. And the producers went, call Timothy Dalton. Well, by this time, Dalton was tied up in another project. So they went looking again. By the time Dalton finished that other project, they still hadn't found anyone. They asked him a third time, but then Dalton wasn't sure he wanted to do it. And the story goes on, but I'll spare you the rest. He eventually said yes.
After years and years of asking and asking and asking, I finally said yes.
Normally, I don't always believe an actor when they say they played hard to get with such an enormous role. A lot of people blow hot air in Hollywood like that. Take Neil Blomkamp, for example. Within 1 year, he claimed to have turned down directing jobs for Star Wars and Star Trek. I don't believe you, Neil, but I do like your movies when they do exist. But if you watch the promotional interviews with Dalton for The Living Daylights, you get a sense that this is a very classically trained actor who is struggling to justify his own career move to such a popular franchise. He's doing everything he can to not just come out and say, "This role is beneath me, but I gotta pay the bills." And let's be honest, Timothy Dalton is by far the highest caliber actor to play James Bond. Other Bonds have more screen presence or more charm, but none of them come close to Dalton's acting ability. Now, I don't want to be unfair here. Dalton is clearly conflicted about taking the role, but I would never say for a second that he disrespects the material or thinks the fans are a bunch of dolts. He's the kind of actor who always wants roles that push his acting to the limit and force him to expand his craft. That is why he appears conflicted. He has his doubts that the role will be a worthy piece of acting that will push his skills and be suitable to have his name on it for all time. And this is the part where I have to take you back to 1986 or whatever, because today, in 2025, the thought of James Bond being a sort of prestige film that can attract top acting talent is not that strange or unusual. But in 1986, that would be like trying to get Daniel Day-Lewis to play in a Fast and Furious movie. I know they did get Helen Mirren in a couple of them, but stay with me here. The franchise was just as old as Fast and Furious is now, and it was campy. The series had pedigree, but Bond went to space just a few years prior. The series was known for being a little silly back then. So it is my belief that the foundations, the beginnings of the Bond franchise becoming so prestige-friendly, began when Timothy Dalton took the part. He certainly took the role seriously, and they let him. On top of that, there is a distinct drop in camp in the series ever since 1987. No more strapping Bond to a rocket or lowering him slowly into shark-infested waters. The point is, the mustache twirling was pretty much gone now. The plots were more serious and the villains were more realistic. More realistic, okay? Not completely. And that started with Timothy Dalton. The Living Daylights is the first time real dramatic prestige came to Bond. They kind of tried that with On Her Majesty's, but George Lazenby was a car salesman, you know? He was a model. He was no Timothy Dalton. The series had style and presence and panache already, but now it had
Acting.
As the series progressed into the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s, it kind of had to bob and weave around Mission Impossible, Austin Powers, Jason Bourne, and then Mission Impossible again, as that series also redefined itself. After the success of The Bourne Identity, the Bond producers blended that hard-hitting action and grittiness really well into the adventure and romance of Bond in Casino Royale. And then when they realized Tom Cruise was just going to keep making Mission Impossible films, those films kind of became a stunt showcase. So the Bond producers steered Bond more toward this stylish blend of high drama and sleek action that we've seen from Skyfall to now, that also attracts top dramatic talent and is actually awards friendly. These were both very smooth pivots that have worked very well, and Timothy Dalton made it possible. Without his two films, pushing the character the way they did for Daniel Craig's Bond would have been a tougher pill for audiences to swallow. Plain and simple. Like many a fan, Dalton's Bond has been climbing my personal favorites list faster than a golden bullet the last couple of years. Most Bond fans will tell you that Fleming's Bond, from the novels, has never been portrayed better on screen than in Dalton's second and final Bond film, License to Kill. Which is pretty ironic, actually, because that's also the first Bond film to not have a Fleming title. But anyway, this is what Dalton brought to the role. This whole season of the channel is about comparing the Bond's first outings, and Dalton's was a landmark for this reason. It's been so influential to the series' future, and still is. Since writing this, Denis Villeneuve has been announced as the next Bond director, solidifying my point. I can see the series comfortably occupying its current high-polish, high-drama, spy action market position for many years to come. It makes the series very unique, in my opinion. Okay, all that was kind of about Timothy Dalton in general, and I have some things I want to say about The Living Daylights in particular. The movie is very, very good, the kind you have to really nitpick to find anything wrong. The music is one of my favorite parts, and it was the final Bond score by John Barry, who has a cameo at the end. And he did something different for this one that I don't quite understand, and maybe you can help me out. For most other Bonds, he co-wrote the title song and wove it into the score. For The Living Daylights, he wove 3 different pop songs into the score. There's The Living Daylights, there's Where Has Everybody Gone, and there's If There Was a Man. And it's just really interesting and different. The Living Daylights serves as a general action theme, Where Has Everybody Gone serves as Necros' theme, and If There Was a Man serves as the love theme. I wonder if John Barry was trying to lay out a new blueprint for Bond's scores here. And if he was, that's kind of sad because we let him down. Now, if you've heard anything about this or you know something I don't, please let me know in the comments. The airplane net stunt at the end is absolute madness. I've said it before, not on this channel, but I'll say it again. The John Glen Bond era has the best stunt work by far. It's crazy. John Glen directed all 5 Bond movies in the 80s, and this net stunt is top tier, as is all the stunt work in The Living Daylights. Horse stunts are always impressive to me because they're so dangerous, and the Jeep stuff at the beginning, oh my gosh. Okay, I know it's not a Jeep, it's a 1971 Land Rover 88 Series 3, but still the stunt stuff is crazy. The only complaint I can even think of for this movie is that the last act gets a little busy. The plot thickens maybe just a hair too much before settling down, but it's so minor I'm not even taking points off for that. I give The Living Daylights 10 out of 10 commandments, which means we have a new leader in Bond versus Bond. With the rating of The Living Daylights, Timothy Dalton emerges as the clear leader with 10. Connery is second with 8. Moore and Craig are tied for third with 7.5 each. And poor George is even less likely to escape last place with 4. To catch up on Bond vs. Bond, check out the playlist. Next up is the season finale with Pierce Brosnan's first outing in GoldenEye. And with this season ending, that means it's time to vote on the next season. As soon as this video is live, a poll will also be live. You can find that on the community tab on my page. And don't forget, if you have ideas for another season of Big Shot Critic, put them in the comments. Every time we have one of these polls, one of the options, at least one of the options, will be taken from your submissions. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This season of Bond vs. Bond, the first outings, has been a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to doing GoldenEye with you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay posted, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.